Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome to day 14 of the 24 days of Christmas. We've only got 10 days left until Christmas Eve. Very excited. I love getting into this time of the holiday season. It's my favorite time of the year. I love all the family, love all the food, friends, gatherings, all of that stuff is right up my alley. I also, strangely enough, love the music. Not being religious at all, maybe a little bit spiritual if you wanna classify me that way. I absolutely adore Christmas music because it's so hopeful and upbeat and fun to listen to. Plus, it's got a special place in my heart, from childhood. So I love all things that have to do with Christmas and the holidays. So doesn't matter what holiday. Hanukkah is great, Kwanzaa is great, Diwali is awesome. Love them all. Tonight we are going to be continuing with the Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, the book that my friend Taylor recommended. Great book so far. I'm loving it. We read through the what was it called? Childhood? The first section of the book yesterday. Youth. So we went through youth yesterday. Today we're going to be going through manhood. We're going to be starting with the first two chapters of that section of the book. And as always, every so often, as always, if you want to go and take a look at some of the previous recordings, the A Christmas Carol was the first book that we read through that basically took up the first 10 days of the 24 days of Christmas. The first 11 days of... No, the first 10 days. The 11th day, we did a little bit of an audiobook demonstration, and then the 12th day, we did The Gift of the Magi, which was another really great book. Somber, a little bit sad, but at the same time, a great moral and lesson in that story. So if you want to go and take a look at any of those previous episodes, they're available on YouTube. Here's the playlist link. You can go and take a look at any of those at any time. I'm going to be leaving them up over, forever, basically. So go check those out if you're interested. While we're doing our narration, you will be able to see the book as I'm reading through it, as I'm narrating, and you might see a couple of these QR codes pop up from time to time. They are essentially just donation buttons, so if you'd like to donate to kind of help me take care of some of the time investment and some of the technology investment that goes into producing these live streams. Looks like the book on the mainstream is getting cut off, so I'm going to have to go in and fix that. But yeah, these are the QR codes you can use to either Venmo me directly, $5 for a coffee or something like that, or use the coffee link. It's also the same concept. You're buying me a coffee for putting this content out. Not required, never required, but always appreciated because again, I am putting a bit of time every day for the 24 days of Christmas, as well as some of the technology investment into recording, editing. Well, no editing. I just put them up or live stream them. But all of that has costs involved with it, so it's always beneficial to help support your creatives. Let me see if I can really quickly adjust this screen here. And I think what I want to do is, that is over the webcam, so I want to change that border there, and then drag it over like so. Alright, so you guys probably just watched me fix that, and now it should look good for you as well. Is that just the QR code one? Yeah, the main one is a little different. Could probably make this one bigger though. Let's adjust it before we get started. There we go. And we'll do the same that way. Perfect. And locked. Cool. I don't think there's anything else to go over. Oh, I am kind of sort of getting over a little bit of a sinus thing still, so if it sounds like I have a stuffy nose, I do. It's just all right up in here. Every so often I'll blow my nose, but otherwise I feel fine. Nothing is wrong. Everything is up on the mend, all of that. So just bear that in mind as I'm going through this, but shouldn't be a problem. And let's get into the second section of the Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, and we'll get into manhood. Manhood. Chapter 1. The Laughing Valley. When Claus came, the valley was empty save for the grass, the brook, the wildflowers, the bees, and the butterflies. If he would make his home here and live after the fashion of men, he must have a house. This puzzled him at first, but while he stood smiling in the sunshine, he suddenly found beside him old Nelko, the servant of the master woodsman. Nelko bore an axe, strong and broad, with blade that gleamed like burnished silver. This he placed in the young man's hand, then disappeared without a word. Claus understood, and turning to the forest's edge, he selected a number of fallen tree trunks, which he began to clear of their dead branches. He would not cut into a living tree. His life among the nymphs who guarded the forest had taught him that a live tree is sacred, being a created thing endowed with feeling. But with the dead and fallen trees it was different. They had fulfilled their destiny as active members of the forest community, and now it was fitting that their remains should minister to the needs of man. The axe bit deep into the logs at every stroke. It seemed to have a force of its own, and Claus had but to swing and guide it. When shadows began creeping over the green hills to lie in the valley overnight, the young man had chopped many logs into equal lengths and proper shapes for building a house, such as he had seen the poorer classes of men inhabit. Then, resolving to await another day before he tried to fit the logs together, Claus ate some of the sweet roots he well knew how to find, drank deeply from the laughing brook, and lay down to sleep on the grass, first seeking a spot where no flowers grew, lest the weight of his body should crush them. And while he slumbered and breathed in the perfume of the wondrous valley, the spirit of happiness crept into his heart and drove out all terror and care and misgivings. Never more would the face of Claus be clouded with anxieties. Never more would the trials of life weigh him down as with burden. The Laughing Valley had claimed him for its own. Would that we all might live in that delightful place. But then, maybe it would become overcrowded. For ages it had awaited a tenant. Was it chance that led young Claus to make his home in this happy vale? Or may we guess that his thoughtful friends, the immortals, had directed his steps when he wandered away from Burzee to seek a home in the great world? Certain it is that while the moon peered over the hilltop and flooded with its soft beams the body of the sleeping stranger, the Laughing Valley was filled with the queer, crooked shapes of the friendly nooks. These people spoke no words, but worked with skill and swiftness. The logs Claus had trimmed with his bright axe were carried to a spot beside the brook and fitted one upon another, and during the night a strong and roomy dwelling was built. The birds came sweeping into the valley at daybreak, and their songs, so seldom heard in the deep wood, aroused the stranger. He rubbed the web of sleep from his eyelids and looked around. The house met his gaze. "I must thank the Knooks for this," said he gratefully. Then he walked to his dwelling and entered at the doorway. A large room faced him, having a fireplace at the end and a table and bench in the middle. Beside the fireplace was a cupboard. Another doorway was beyond. Claus entered here also and saw a smaller room with a bed against the wall and a stool set near a small stand. On the bed were many layers of dried moss brought from the forest. "Indeed, it is a palace!" exclaimed the smiling Claus. "I must thank the good Knooks again for their knowledge of man's needs, as well as for their labors in my behalf." He left his new home with a glad feeling that he was not quite alone in the world, although he had chosen to abandon his forest life. Friendships are not easily broken, and the immortals are everywhere. Upon reaching the brook, he drank of the pure water, and then sat down on the bank to laugh at the mischievous gambols of the ripples as they pushed one another against rocks or crowded desperately to see which should first reach the turn beyond. And as they raced away, he listened to the song they sang. "Rushing, pushing, on we go, not a wave may gently flow. All are too excited, every drop delighted, turns to spray in merry play as we tumble on our way." Next, Claus searched for roots to eat, while the daffodils turned their little eyes up to him, laughingly and lisped their dainty song. "Blooming fairly, growing rarely, never flowerets were so gay. Perfume breathing, joy bequeathing, as our colors we display." It made Claus laugh to hear the little things voice their happiness as they nodded gracefully on their stems. But another strain caught his ear as the sunbeams fell gently across his face and whispered, "Here is gladness that our rays warm the valleys through the days. Here is happiness to give comfort unto all who live." "Yes," cried Claus in answer, "there is happiness and joy in all things here. The Laughing Valley is a valley of peace and goodwill." He passed the day talking with the ants and beetles and exchanging jokes with the light-hearted butterflies. And at night he lay on his bed of soft moss and slept soundly. Then came the fairies, merry but noiseless, bringing skillets and pots and dishes and pans and all the tools necessary to prepare food and to comfort a mortal. With these they filled cupboards and fireplace, finally placing a stout suit of wool clothing on the stool by the bedside. When Claus awoke, he rubbed his eyes again and laughed, and spoke aloud his thanks to the fairies and the master woodsman who had sent them. With eager joy he examined all his new possessions, wondering what some might be used for. But in the days when he had clung to the girdle of the great Ak and visited the cities of men, his eyes had been quick to note all the manners and customs of the race to which he belonged, so he guessed from the gifts brought by the fairies that the master expected him hereafter to live in the fashion of his fellow creatures. "Which means that I must plow the earth and plant corn," he reflected, "so that when winter comes I shall have garnered food in plenty." But as he stood in the grassy valley, he saw that to turn up the earth in furrows would be to destroy hundreds of pretty helpless flowers, as well as thousands of the tender blades of grass. And this he could not bear to do so. Therefore he stretched out his arms and uttered a peculiar whistle he had learned in the forest, afterwards crying, "Riles of the field flowers, come to me!" Instantly a dozen of the queer little riles were squatting upon the ground before him, and they nodded to him in cheerful greeting. Claus gazed upon them earnestly. "Your brothers of the forest," he said, "I have known and loved many years. I shall love you also when we have become friends. To me, the laws of the riles, whether those of the forest or of the field, are sacred. I have never willfully destroyed one of the flowers you tend so carefully. But I must plant grain to use for food during the cold winter, and how am I to do this without killing the little creatures that sing to me so prettily of their fragrant blossoms?" The yellow rile, he who tends the buttercups, made answer, "Fret not, friend Claus. The great Ak has spoken to us of you. There is better work for you in life than to labor for food, and though not being of the forest, Ak has no command over us. Nevertheless, we are glad to favor one he loves. Live, therefore, to do the good work you are resolved to undertake. We, the field riles, will attend to your food supplies." After this speech, the riles were no longer to be seen, and Claus drove from his mind the thought of tilling the earth. When next he wandered back to his dwelling, a bowl of fresh milk stood upon the table, bread was in the cupboard, and sweet honey filled a dish beside it. A pretty basket of rosy apples and new-plucked grapes was also awaiting him. He called out, "Thanks, my friends," to the invisible riles, and straightway began to eat of the food. Thereafter, whenever hungry, he had but to look into the cupboard to find goodly supplies brought by the kindly riles, and the nooks cut and stacked much wood for his fireplace, and the fairies brought him warm blankets and clothing. So began his life in the Laughing Valley, with the favor and friendship of the immortals to minister to his every want. Chapter 2. How Claus Made the First Toy. Truly our Claus had wisdom, for his good fortune but strengthened his resolve to befriend the little ones of his own race. He knew his plan was approved by the immortals, else they would not have favored him so greatly. So he began at once to make acquaintance with mankind. He walked through the valley to the plain beyond, and crossed the plain in many directions to reach the abodes of men. These stood singly or in groups of dwellings called villages, and in nearly all the houses, whether big or little, Claus found children. The youngsters soon came to know his merry, laughing face and the kind glance of his bright eyes, and the parents, while they regarded the young man with some scorn for loving children more than their elders, were content that the girls and boys had found a playfellow who seemed willing to amuse them. So the children romped and played games with Claus, and the boys rode upon his shoulders, and the girls nestled in his strong arms, and the babies clung fondly to his knees. Wherever the young man chanced to be, the sound of childish laughter followed him, and to understand this better, you must know that children were much neglected in those days, and received little attention from their parents, so that it became to them a marvel that so goodly a man as Claus devoted his time to making them happy. And those who knew him were, you may be sure, very happy indeed. And the sad faces of the poor and abused grew bright for once. The cripples smiled despite his misfortune, the ailing ones hushed their moans, and the grieved ones their cries when their merry friend came nigh to comfort them. Only at the beautiful palace of the Lord of Lurd and at the frowning castle of Baron Braun was Claus refused admittance. There were children at both places, but the servants at the palace shut the door in the young stranger's face, and the fierce baron threatened to hang him from an iron hook on the castle walls. Whereupon Claus sighed and went back to the poorer dwellings where he was welcome. After a time, the winter drew near. The flowers lived out their lives and faded and disappeared. The beetles burrowed far into the warm earth. The butterflies deserted the meadows, and the voice of the brook grew hoarse, as if it had taken cold. One day snowflakes filled all the air in the Laughing Valley, dancing boisterously toward the earth and clothing in pure white raiment the roof of Klaus's dwelling. At night, Jack Frost rapped at the door. "Come in!" cried Claus. "Come out!" answered Jack, "for you have a fire inside." So Claus came out. He had known Jack Frost in the forest, and liked the jolly rogue, even while he mistrusted him. "There will be a rare sport for me tonight, Claus," shouted the sprite. "Isn't this glorious weather? I shall nip scores of noses and ears and toes before daybreak." "If you love me, Jack, spare the children," begged Claus. "And why?" asked the other in surprise. "They are tender and helpless," answered Claus. "But I love to nip the tender ones," declared Jack. "The older ones are tough and tire my fingers." "The young ones are weak and cannot fight you," said Claus. "True," agreed Jack thoughtfully. "Well, I will not pinch a child this night, if I can resist the temptation," he promised. "Good night, Claus." "Good night." The young man went in and closed the door, and Jack Frost ran on to the nearest village. Claus threw a log on the fire, which burned up brightly. Beside the hearth sat Blinky, a big cat given him by Peter the Knook. Her fur was soft and glossy, and she purred never-ending songs of contentment. "I shall not see the children again soon," said Claus to the cat, who kindly paused in her song to listen. "The winter is upon us, the snow will be deep for many days, and I shall be unable to play with my little friends." The cat raised a paw and stroked her nose thoughtfully, but made no reply. So long as the fire burned and Claus sat in his easy chair by the hearth, she did not mind the weather. So passed many days and many long evenings. The cupboard was always full, but Claus became weary with having nothing to do more than to feed the fire from the big woodpile the Knooks had brought him. One evening he picked up a stick of wood and began to cut it with his sharp knife. He had no thought at first except to occupy his time, and he whistled and sang to the cat as he carved away portions of the stick. Puss sat up on her haunches and watched him, listening at the same time to her master's merry whistle, which she loved to hear even more than her own purring songs. Claus glanced at Puss and then at the stick he was whittling, until presently the wood began to have a shape, and the shape was like the head of the cat, with 2 ears sticking upward. Claus stopped whistling to laugh, and then both he and the cat looked at the wooden image in some surprise. Then he carved out the eyes and the nose and rounded the lower part of the head so that it rested upon a neck. Puss hardly knew what to make of it now, and sat up stiffly, as if watching with some suspicion what would come next. Claus knew. The head gave him an idea. He plied his knife carefully and with skill, forming slowly the body of the cat, which he made to sit upon its haunches as the real cat did, with her tail wound round her 2 front legs. The work cost him much time, but the evening was long, and he had nothing better to do. Finally, he gave a loud and delighted laugh at the result of his labors, and placed the wooden cat, now completed, upon the hearth opposite the real one. Puss thereupon glared at her image, raised her hair in anger, and uttered a defiant meow. The wooden cat paid no attention, and Claus, much amused, laughed again. Then Blinky advanced toward the wooden image to eye it closely and smell of it intelligently. Eyes and nose told her the creature was wood, in spite of its natural appearance, so Puss resumed her seat and her purring, but as she neatly washed her face with her padded paw, she cast more than one admiring glance at her clever master. Perhaps she felt the same satisfaction we feel when we look upon good photographs of ourselves. The cat's master was himself pleased with his handiwork without knowing exactly why. Indeed, he had great cause to congratulate himself that night, and all the children throughout the world should have joined him rejoicing, for Claus had made his first toy. All right, that'll be the end of tonight's reading for the 24 Days of Christmas. This is a really fun story. Again, I'm cold reading this. I've not read through the book before. This is a recommendation from one of my really good friends and colleagues, Taylor Garvin. And I am loving it. This is super cute. It's a really nice origin story for Santa Claus. And you'll notice I'm calling him Claus. Earlier in the book, they said that sometimes it's Niklaus or Nicholas. So I'm just kind of saying the name normally. When I say Santa Claus, I do say Santa Claus. But I don't think anybody would just call him Claus. I think they would probably call him Claus. So that's why I'm reading it that way. In any case, hopefully you guys are all enjoying this book as well. Again, if you are enjoying and you want to donate to kind of help cover some of the costs of the production of this series, feel free to go ahead and either Venmo me directly right there. $5 for a coffee is always good, or, I mean, if you want to adjust for inflation, $10, or Coffee, which is the other website down there. They both achieve the same thing. Neither one is required. Just pick one. Don't do both, or, I mean, if you want to do both, you can, but one is more than enough. Never required, always appreciated, but, yeah. That'll bring us to the end of tonight's episode of, the 24 Days of Christmas. I will see you all tomorrow night for day 15, where we will continue with chapter 3 of the second section of the book, entitled Manhood. So, once again, this has been the life and adventures of Santa Claus, and I'm having a blast. Hopefully you guys are too. Happy holidays, everyone, as we move closer and closer to Christmas, and I will see you tomorrow for another wonderful episode of the 24 Days of Christmas. Good night.